Thanks for coming out. Oh, that's loud. How's that? Mental wellness and struggling well for post-traumatic growth. What I want to do with this presentation is shift the narrative a little bit. Most of you know who I am. I've worked in emergency response for most of my life. And I deal with a lot of people that have experienced post-traumatic stress injuries. Post-traumatic, sometimes we call it a disorder. But we're trying to move away from that. I at least am, and turn it into an injury that you can heal from, and actually something that you can come out on the other side of potentially better than you went into it. I started in an emergency response at 17 years old, joined a search and rescue team down in Colorado. I was a climber and mountaineer, so they put me in a helicopter and flew me around the mountains, and we picked people out of the mountains that were hurt or injured. Most of the time they were not alive. And I did that for a long time as a kid. Worked my way into eventually firefighting and EMS and a lot of other stuff. Got to see all sorts of things that a 17-year-old kid probably shouldn't see. And me, like a lot of people in my profession, was never really taught how to deal with that kind of stuff. We were taught that you just kind of bury that stuff in the back of your mind and you lock it away and you forget about it. Except for that doesn't work. But emergency responders, we're not the only ones that experience post-traumatic stress, right? We've been at war, we were at war for about 20 years. Lots of millions and millions of veterans experience post-traumatic stress injuries. The whole world just survived a pandemic where we were afraid to even talk to our neighbors or touch doorknobs for a while there, right? So it all adds up. And if we don't have the tools to process that stress and what it's doing inside our bodies, things can happen. You know, I went along just fine until I was in my 40s, and some life events really triggered a lot of that stress, and it all came pouring out as happens. And I found myself just mired in depression and anxiety. And I had to learn how to work my way out of it, and I learned some tools through my struggles to really come out more resilient and a more wholehearted person on the other side of it. And I hope to share some of that with you. Again, I work with some really incredible people that do really incredible things, but like I said, it comes at a price. I titled this mental health with an emphasis on the men part of it because a lot of the emergency responders I work with are men. 2/3 of all completed suicides are men. 5% of Americans are experiencing post-traumatic stress injuries right now. 20% of adult males have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. 1 in 5 men have experienced depression and anxiety in their life. And what does that do for our culture? We talk a lot about a toxic work culture, toxic leadership, bullying, rampant sexual harassment. 1 in 9 Americans feel that their leaders are toxic. They're not talking about their female leaders. They're talking about their men leaders. And we can fix this, we can change it. 80% of single-parent homes are led by mothers. Absentee parenting, or non-parenting as I call it, is a huge problem, right? Depression in men often goes undiagnosed. It's often not recognized. We downplay the symptoms. We're not willing to talk. We don't want treatment sometimes. Why is that? Why does it go undiagnosed? Why do we not talk about it? Anybody know a man that doesn't like to ask for help? Anybody know a man that doesn't like to ask for directions when they're lost? We've been taught our whole lives that asking questions like that means that we're weak. We've been taught our whole lives that being vulnerable or sad means that we're weak, right? There's proactive and reactive approaches to mental health, but a lot of men aren't going. We're not going to the counseling center. I didn't even know where it was when I was in the deepest part of my depression. I didn't even know we had one in this town. Who gets left behind? Fear and shame, right? I got taught as a kid, boys don't cry. Those days are over, okay? We can come out of these things better than we went into them. Hurt people hurt others, but luckily healed people heal others. Save people shelter others. It matters. How you act and how you treat yourself matters. Because what you're not changing, you're choosing. I had to make a conscious decision to come up here and talk about this, and it's hard. But I think it's important. We talked about love being a verb earlier, right? And how can we shift this narrative from being victims of our stress or being victims of depression and victims of anxiety and shifting it into a positive thing where we can actually come out better on the other side? The concept of emotional intelligence and emotional literacy. Don't let Kyra see it, but look it up. Emotional intelligence is not being in control of your emotions, but being able to control your reactions to your emotions. So instead of that initial reaction when you get triggered emotionally to shout or fight or flight or run away, but actually take control of your brain and your nervous system and react in a more appropriate manner that's more loving and kind. Practice gratitude. That is an act that you can do every single day. Every night at dinner, I have my children talk about gratitude. We talk about 3 things that we are grateful for that day. We sent text today about gratitude. It will change your life. I have a journal where I write it down every single day, things that I'm grateful for. And it really helps shift the narrative and take you away from being a victim to really taking the reins and moving forward in a positive way. Be accountable for your own mental health. Read books about it. Go get therapy, right? Practice gratitude. Be mindful of what you consume. Food, alcohol, information. What podcasts are you listening to? What are you clicking on social media? The social media algorithms will drive you into this toxic silo that just supports your own beliefs and it really can be really unhealthy if you don't take control of it. We talked about what you consume as far as food, right? Eat more plants. Drink less alcohol. Listen to podcasts about mental health. We can do this. Peer support. Do you have a support group? As emergency responders, we have a firefighter peer support network. We did for a while, and then it disbanded for a while, and then we do again, but it's hard to get a hold of. But I have a good group of friends that I know I can talk to at any time when things are hard. Practice empathy. Gianna talked about that, right? Are we moving towards those bids for connection? Are we listening to understand? Or are we listening to our friends and our peers just to respond? Do we have a growth mindset where we can get better and we're going to bring everybody up with us? Move your body. Exercise. Anxiety in particular is your brain reacting to some sort of fear, right? It wasn't that long ago that we had very real danger in our lives. If there was a predator coming for us, we had to run, or we had to fight, or we had to freeze and hide, right? But your brain doesn't know the difference between real danger and perceived, imaginary, future danger. a test you're going to take, or a meeting you have at work, or an interaction you're going to have with a coworker. Your brain doesn't understand the difference between that kind of fear and real physical danger. So what I do when I feel anxiety coming on is I move my body. Fight, flight, freeze. I go running. I lift weights, hit a punching bag, anything to kind of quell that stuff that's going on in your body. It helps. Embrace vulnerability. Dr. Brene Brown talks about vulnerability a lot. And it's a hard concept for a lot of people and a lot of men, but through vulnerability, we can achieve wholeheartedness and connection that we can't otherwise achieve. If we live in these siloed boxes where we're not vulnerable and we're not engaging with our emotions in a healthy way, we also cannot experience wholehearted connection on a really deep level. And service. I read a book by the Dalai Lama. It's called The Art of Happiness. It's an amazing book if you have ever experienced depression or anxiety. The whole concept of the book is that the art of happiness lives in the service of others. It's compassion, right? Easing the suffering in other people. And by embracing that concept of compassion, we can find that love within ourselves. We also have to practice self-compassion, which is not as easy a concept, but we have to be a little bit gentler with ourselves, a little bit kinder with ourselves, so that we can endure these hard things. You know, that first slide that I put up had a picture of me running. It also had some things that I've done. I went to graduate school. I have a business where I teach leadership to fire departments around the country. But I also engage in these long-distance Ironman events. And I do them because they're really hard. And for me, I do them so that I can remember that I can do hard things. Because it's really the little things that matter, right? How you do anything is how you do everything. And if we're going to be kind to ourselves, it starts with daily practices of gratitude, vulnerability. Because fear and shame, we got to get past all that. We can break generational trauma, right? The way my dad parented me is not the right way. The way his dad parented him is not the right way. And we can break that. We can end it. And we can be kinder to our children. We can be kinder to ourselves. Post-traumatic growth through the struggle well concept and grow through what you go through, it was started by these guys that were prisoners of war in Vietnam. 8 years in an 8-foot by 4-foot concrete rectangle. 8 years, right here. And they came out of that experience more emotionally healthy than when they went in. And it kind of threw this whole concept of post-traumatic stress disorders and injuries on its head, right? How are these people able to come through these really difficult things more resilient, more kind-hearted, more loving than they went in? And it was because they practiced all those things that I had on the previous slide. They had connection with the other people. They developed this whole language where they were tapping on the wall and talking to each other. They were writing things down and practicing gratitude every day. And they wrote books about it. And I think it's really powerful to think about that. If we label somebody as having a disorder, right? It's like diabetes or cancer or something, right? You just have it for the rest of your life. But if we call it an injury, we can heal from. And if we actually teach people that we can actually be better because we go through some traumatic struggles, we can change the world. Doesn't take much. I think the world would be a better place if we all embraced a little bit of this. Thanks for your time.